I should give a warning. Tonight's episode is deeply disturbing and covers topics not meant for sensitive listeners. The things that exist on the deep web are gruesome. Be prepared. Lock your windows, lock your doors, and enter the alternate nightmare. Story 1. My girlfriend and I have always been interested in the dark web, and we were interested in making our own home videos and selling them for cash. We had been using the dark web for a while to buy and sell things, but we had never ventured into the deep web. One day, we decided to check out some of the more scary websites that were mentioned online. We found a website that was basically just a list of links to different dark web videos. The list mainly was video recordings of people getting picked up by cops, most likely for snuff pornography and such. That wasn't the case for this one particular link, though it had a title along the lines of Scary Russian Cult Rituals. We both found the video to be very odd, and as we watched it, we noticed that the video quality was very poor. So we figured that the video must have been taken from a security camera or something like that. About halfway through the video, we saw a man in a black cloak walk into the room. He had a white mask on, holding a snake by the neck. He proceeded to sit down in front of the camera and pull something out from under his cloak that turned out to be a sickle. After this, he stood up and started doing these weird chants with the people in the video. We were both freaked out at this point, but I decided to see if there was a video that described what the footage we were watching was. I found a link to a post on a forum, and it had all the info we needed. The website described this as a clip from a snuff film made by some Russian people in Romania, showing them performing satanic rituals. They also mentioned that the sickle was made of pure silver. They also said that some eyewitnesses claim it's the most horrifying thing on earth. After reading this, we decided to stop watching the video, because, at this point, I was terrified enough never to want to see it again. But about a week later, my girlfriend told me she wanted to go back on the website and see if the video was still up there. I knew I never wanted to watch it again, but she said it would be fine, so I let her go ahead. She found the video and clicked on it. But after a few seconds of watching, nothing happened, nothing played, and we couldn't find the video anywhere. So we figured that maybe it had been taken down or something like that, but we didn't know what to think of it. I started noticing weird things happening around the house, like chairs moving on their own, doors unlocked when I locked them, and my girlfriend was acting very strange. She wasn't just acting strange, and she was acting possessed. I started looking for information on the deep web about cults and Satanism, and I found a website that talked about a Russian cult called the Nightwalkers. According to the website, this cult was known for doing sick rituals that involved sacrificing people. I also found a video on the deep web of a man who claimed to have been in the Nightwalkers cult. He said that they would sacrifice people by cutting their throats, and that their blood was used in satanic rituals. I didn't know what to believe anymore, but I knew I had to get my girlfriend out of the house. So I called her parents, and they came and picked her up. I never saw her again after that, and to this day, I have no idea what happened to her. I'm not sure if any of these stories are true or not, but I know that the deep web is a very scary place, and you can never know what might be lurking in the shadows. Story 2. I'm a guy, and I spend most of my days as a trader in the stock market. I have about 15 years of experience now trading stocks, etc. I got into this line of business after watching the movie Wolf of Wall Street, and it was very inspirational. So when I quit university after 2 years of studying for a degree in financial markets, I began to trade full-time from my small apartment. It was a pretty lucrative business, and I made about $3 million over 8 years. In late 2012, looking for ways to expand my trading empire, I decided to try Bitcoin as it was growing fast. So I watched some videos on YouTube and read articles about it. I quickly realized that this was the future of money. Realizing this, I sold most of my investments and bought as many Bitcoins as possible for $5 each. Today, those same coins are worth $300 each, so I'm now richer than God. But because Bitcoin was so cheap back then, it gave me a lot of purchasing power. Anyway, back to the story. A few months ago, I got interested in the deep web and started reading about it on various websites and forums. I read about how people were making a fortune trading drugs, weapons, etc. So, naturally, I wanted to check it out for myself. I wanted to figure out a way to make some extra Bitcoins without much risk. However, I was a bit uneasy about trading drugs and weapons in case I got caught or something, so initially, I decided to stick with scamming people. I kept reading many forums and reviews of different sites that dealt in credit cards, information, etc. Finally, after a week of research, I found a site selling US credit card info. The site seemed very professional, and the guy behind it answered every question I had before I even asked them. It seemed like one of those people who would never scam anyone. So that's where I made my mistake. I bought $6,000 worth of credit card numbers, and after waiting for a few hours with no credit card numbers delivered to my email, I decided to cancel the order. The site admin replied almost instantly, letting me know that he had sent them already, and it should take some time to process. So I asked him to please cancel the order and give me my money back. After a couple of days with no reply, I saw that $6,000 worth of bitcoins had been transferred from my account to his. I freaked out. Everything was gone. Now here is where it gets interesting. I needed the guy's personal info to report him to the police, but failing that, I needed to figure out his real identity. It is illegal in the state where I live to send or receive money online without providing your ID, so he definitely broke some laws. I started by typing his email address in search engines like Google, etc. Nothing showed up, so then I tried to find his website on Google, but it was not indexed. I then remembered that I had seen a few people post about this guy on different dark web forums, so I decided to check them out. After searching, I found one forum where someone had posted his real name and address. I immediately contacted the police and reported him. They told me that they had been trying to track him down for a while, but he was very good at covering his tracks. I'm not sure what happened to the guy, but I hope he got caught and served prison time. This is just one of many horror stories from people who have ventured into the deep web for one reason or another. While some of the stories are fiction, many of them come from people who have experienced firsthand what it is like to enter a world where there are no rules and no consequences for your actions. Unfortunately, it shows that illegal behavior on the deep web can go unpunished and sometimes even unnoticed. So if you are thinking of entering the deep web, be very careful. It is a world where anything and everything is possible, and you never know what might happen. So be sure to do your research before entering this dark and dangerous place. Stay safe. Story 3. When it comes to computers, I know my way around. I'm not an expert, but I can manage my way around most things. That being said, the deep web is something that terrifies me. A few months ago, a friend of mine told me about the deep web and how he used it for years without any problems. I was a little skeptical, but I decided to try it out. On my first attempt at using the deep web, I turned on Tor and clicked on what seemed like a legitimate link for CP that my friend had told me about. I, of course, was expecting some crazy stuff to happen or something, but nothing happened. Just a simple page of text. After that initial failure, I decided to give the deep web another try. This time, I found a different website selling drugs. Again, nothing happened. Just a simple page with text and prices. At this point, I was starting to get frustrated. I had heard all sorts of horror stories about the deep web and was expecting to find something bad on every website I visited, but that wasn't the case. So, I decided to give it one more try. This time, I found a website that sold guns. Again, nothing happened. Just a simple page with text and prices. At this point, I was starting to get even more frustrated. I had a friend with me who also wanted to try out the deep web, so I decided to give it one last shot. This time, we found a website selling what seemed to be human body parts, specifically fingers and toes. Once again, nothing happened. Just a simple page with text and prices. At this point, I was completely frustrated. Again, I had heard all sorts of horror stories about the deep web, but I couldn't find anything bad on any of the websites I visited. So, I decided to give up and never go back. A few weeks later, my friend who had originally shown me the deep web called me. He told me that he had been using it for years and had never had any problems. Then, he asked me if I wanted to see something really scary. At that point, I was so curious about what could be on the deep web that I decided to say yes. My friend took me onto Tor and opened up a site for children. On the child pornography website, we saw videos of young girls being murdered and raped on camera. I was so scared and disgusted that I immediately slammed my laptop shut and got as far away from the computer as possible. So yeah, don't go onto the deep web. Story 4. So let's cut to the chase and get right into it, shall we? No reason to beat around the bush. My first experience was a little over a year ago. My friend told me of an internet site called the Silk Road, a hidden website on Tor, claiming to be the only unregulated market in the world. I had heard about other websites like this from my friend before, but I'm pretty tech savvy, and I've been around for a while, so it sounded just too good to be true. And that's exactly what I thought it was. I didn't believe him, but he was persistent and kept telling me to check it out for myself. It took a few months before I finally looked into it because I assumed that it would be shut down within weeks, if not days. So what's the point? But one night, my curiosity got the better of me because I wanted to see what all of the fuss was about. So I downloaded Tor and opened up the Silk Road website. I was immediately greeted with a warning that I was entering an unregulated and lawless marketplace and did so at my own risk. It then went on to list a few examples of what could happen to me if I was caught trading illegal items on this site, so I had some idea of what was going on. I browsed around a bit and found that there wasn't much on offer as far as drugs go. If you've been to Silk Road or any other market for that matter, you'll know that they are mostly full of weed, MDMA, LSD, and a few other basic drugs, but that's about it. I was a little disappointed, but I figured that it was probably because it was only a new site and that things would pick up over time. I then decided to look into the darker side of the internet, and that's when I found some truly disturbing websites, ones that no person should ever have to see. I won't mention them directly, you'll know what I mean when you see them. I was horrified at what was out there. That's when it hit me that this site must be popular for people to visit these kinds of sites in droves. So I went back to look at Silk Road to see if there was a section for these types of websites, and sure enough, there was. It was called the Darknet. I didn't know what to make of it. I was scared, but also fascinated at the same time. I didn't want to go any further, but I couldn't help myself either. I eventually decided to register an account, so I could have a look around. I figured that the next best step would be to buy some Bitcoin, which is basically how you pay for stuff on Silk Road. There are all kinds of guides out there on how to get started, but it seemed pretty straightforward. So anyway, after finding the perfect Bitcoin exchange site, I deposited a modest amount of cash and purchased my first Bitcoin. After that, I decided to buy 2 because the going rate was good. Once they were deposited in my account, I figured it would be best to send one of them to my wallet on Silk Road, which is basically how you pay for stuff on the site. I was expecting it to take at least an hour or 2 for the confirmation of my purchase to go through, but no more than 24 hours, according to the site. It didn't even take 10 minutes before I received a confirmation email from blockchain, which is how you make purchases on Silk Road. However, I had only sent 1 Bitcoin, not 2. I'll get back to this later in the story. I then logged into Silk Road to check out my purchase, only to be greeted with a really simple interface that looked like it was built in MS Paint. It didn't look anything like any of the screenshots I've seen online, which made me suspicious. At this point, I started to doubt the authenticity of the site. But I decided to go ahead and make a purchase anyway, just to see if it was real or not. So I picked out a relatively small item, which wasn't too expensive but wasn't cheap. I then went through the checkout process, which was also really simple. You just type in your shipping address, and the site takes care of the rest. I then hit the submit button and waited for my purchase to be shipped. I was excited at this point because I thought I had finally found a way to get my hands on some of those harder to find items. About 30 minutes later, I got an email from blockchain saying that 1 Bitcoin was sent to the seller, but only 1, not 2, as I had requested earlier. It didn't make any sense to me, so I double-checked my order, and it turned out that the site had doubled the price on their end without telling me. I went ballistic. I had just been scammed by some fake website pretending to be Silk Road. I felt so stupid, like I had fallen for a cheap trick. At this point, I started to regret ever getting involved in the deep web. It was only then that I realized how dangerous it could be. You never really know who you're dealing with when dealing with these types of websites. I could have easily been scammed out of a lot more money if I wasn't careful. I'm not sure what compelled me to write this post, but I just wanted to share my story, hoping that it will help others stay safe when they're exploring the deep web. It's a really dangerous place, and you need to be careful if you want to stay safe. Be smart, and don't trust anyone that you don't know. These are just my tips, but I'm sure there are others out there who can offer better advice. Story 5. I have a history of schizophrenia, and I love the deep web, so I decided to tell my story. There's some weird stuff on the deep web. One day I stumbled upon a thread where people were talking about Darknet markets. It was all pretty normal, but then out of nowhere, they started talking about this girl who was kidnapped by someone on the Darknet and was being held captive. I started to freak out. I had never heard anything like that before, and I didn't know if it was true or not. So I decided to do some more research, and I came across a few articles about it. It was a real thing in this girl named Amanda Todd, but unfortunately, she was found dead soon after, and the police had no leads on who killed her or why she was even kidnapped in the first place. This story freaked me out. I still can't get it out of my head, and it's been a day since I discovered the thread, so I thought I would share this story with you and see what you think. Let me know in the comments below any of your experiences on the deep web. Story 6. I'm a 21-year-old college student studying computer science. My language is Chash, and I also dabble in Java, C++, PHP, Python, etc. I got into this topic because of a course I am taking. We were assigned a project to research the deep web and see what kind of cool things we could find, so that is what I did. The first thing I found was a site that offers you paid access to restricted web pages for a set price. When you visit the page, you are greeted with a rotating set of random web pages, on each one showing you the date accessed, and the IP used to access it. This site intrigued me, so I started doing some digging. More on that later. I found an article on Cracked about 5 creepy websites that will ruin your childhood. Looking at them, I could see that 4 out of 5 were simply websites created to scare people. The 5th one, however, was different. Entitled The Human Experiment, it is a website that contains videos and pictures of real-life human experiments that doctors and scientists have conducted. Some of the experiments are quite graphic and show people being mutilated and tortured. As someone studying computer science, I found this to be quite interesting. The website claims that all of the information contained within it is true, and while I cannot verify that claim, I am inclined to believe it. After looking through some more of the deep web, I found a site that sells illegal drugs. The site is quite simple. It has a list of drugs for sale and the prices for each. I also found a site that sells weapons, both legal and illegal. The site is again quite simple, and it has a list of weapons for sale and the prices for each. Lastly, I found a site selling something I did not expect: people. While it is obvious why someone would sell illegal weapons, drugs, or even restricted web pages, I was not expecting human beings to be sold on the deep web. After finding all of these disturbing things, my friend and I decided to email the websites and get some information on them. While we did not receive a response from the website that was selling people, we did receive a response from the website selling illegal drugs. He told us that he got into the business because he saw an opportunity to make some money and took it. He said that while many people have tried to hack his website, only one person has ever been successful. This person hacked into the server and deleted all of the files that contained information about drug transactions. I was quite unnerved by our conversation with this guy, so I did some more digging around on the deep web. No new information was found, so I decided to try and find some more unsavory websites. While doing that, my friend tried to hack into the website that was selling people, but after 10 minutes of trying, she gave up. She did manage to get into all the other sites. However, due to this fact, I believe her when she says that no one has successfully hacked this particular website. In conclusion, the deep web is a terrifying place where everything from drugs to people is sold for an unknown price, and you cannot even be guaranteed your safety after making a purchase. I will not be going back there anytime soon. Story 7. When I was in my 20s, I traveled around the world. I lived in many countries and have seen the dark side of humanity in some horrible places. But I saw the dark side of humanity once I stumbled upon the deep web. I was looking for a Darknet market site, but I didn't find one. What I did find was some sick, horrific stuff. I saw videos of torture rooms, women being sold into sexual slavery on auction blocks where they were sold to the highest bidder and then taken away, never to be seen from again. I even heard a man screaming for his life over an audio feed before it cut out, and he was dead. All the horrible things you think are on the deep web exist. For example, the torture rooms, they make ridiculous amounts of money. You have some pretty extensive clients visit these places and pay top dollar to view this stuff. Sometimes hundreds of thousands per viewing. It's a pretty sick business, and the people operating these things deserve a slow death for the evil they unleash upon the innocent. However, the worst thing to ever come across was when I saw a video of a man being decapitated. It was the most gruesome thing I had ever seen in my life, and it still haunts me to this day. I have never been able to get that image out of my mind, disturbing me greatly. Anyway, since all of these things, I try and just stay off of the dark web altogether. Story 8. I remember the first time I logged onto the deep web. I had learned everything I needed from a black hat forum, which I won't name. After getting Tor browser up and going, and venturing into my first hour on the deep web, I came upon a chat room and began chatting with a man who referred to himself as Ace. We were talking about normal things when he suddenly asked for my address. I refused to give it to him and told him I was uncomfortable with sharing that information. The next thing I knew, a pop-up appeared on my screen with a picture of the address on Google Maps. I quickly closed the window, but not before he had already seen my name. He then began to ask me if I was really into pain, and that he knew of a deep website with tons of hardcore videos. He said he could get them for me, but first, I had to prove myself by showing him how much pain my body could handle. I didn't feel like I had a choice anymore. I felt trapped. What if I didn't go along with his little scheme? He would do something incredibly nefarious. So I told him that I could handle a lot of pain, and asked him to take me to the site. He gave me a link, and I clicked on it. I'm watching a woman being tortured in front of a webcam the next thing I know. It was horrific. After about 10 minutes of watching this poor soul, the feed went out. I immediately disconnected from the deep web, and haven't gone back since. I don't know what would have happened if I had continued talking to Ace, but I'm grateful that I didn't find out. If anything, this story has taught me that who I choose to talk to on the deep web is vitally important. That was the last time I ever logged onto the deep web and used the Tor browser. A little more than a year later, and I'm still having nightmares about that poor woman being tortured.